What is up, clean freaks and filthy friends alike? Filthy Dan coming at you once again for another film discussion. And maybe tonight we'll be gone, or maybe we can hang out and talk about 1987's A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, considered by many Fredheads to be the greatest nightmare alongside the first one, do I agree with this? Or do I find A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 to be a tad overrated? Let's find out. So after the less than positive response from audiences to A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, how do you return to form, redeem yourself, and recapture your audience? That's right, you bring back Wes Craven. Although Craven didn't direct, he did develop the story with Bruce Wagner, and some of their ideas would be revamped by Frank Darabont and the director of the film, Chuck Russell. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, we get Kristen, played by Patricia Arquette, as our new central character. You can guess that she's a teen who's now getting stalked by Freddy, and she survives her opening nightmare attack, which Freddy makes it look like a suicide. And I really find it cool that her opening dream is basically a dream within a dream at one point. And if anyone has ever had that shit happen where you wake up and you're still in another dream, you know just how bad that shit sucks. So, this eventually leads us to the Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital, and that's where we meet the majority of our supporting cast. And we also get the return of Nancy from the first film, and that really shines a light on the absurdity of Bob Shaye's tacked-on ending to the original film. And I do find the character of Nancy to actually be more interesting this go-around. Yes, she was a good character in the first film, but this time I actually am a little more invested in Nancy's story development. And we quickly learn that a lot of these other teens in the Weston Hills are having dreams about Freddy, so they're having a synchronized nightmares, and this doesn't raise any red flags to the staff at Weston. But Nancy working there, she of course kind of actually gives a fuck about it, having been haunted by Freddy herself at one point. And I think a lot of the supporting cast are actually give a lot of solid performances in this. And just like with the first one, every character is pretty much likable. They're all very well written, and you almost want to see all of them make it out to the end of the film. But if they all made it out, this wouldn't be a slasher flick if they did that, right? But speaking of being a slasher film, that's going to bring us over to the kills, which are all very nicely done for the most part, with the exception of Willy Willie. Yeah, Will's death was pretty anticlimactic. But the supporting cast, the kids in this film, you got Kincaid, Joey, Will. There's also Jennifer, Taryn, and Philip. But then you also got fucking Dr. Gordon, who's looks like he's Bill Maher's cousin, and Dr. Sims, who's kind of she's the nurse Ratchet up in this organization, and like they all give very, very believable, convincing performances. You hate the characters who come off as dicks, and you like everyone else. So that's acting job well done, obviously. But yeah, we do also find out that the teens have these special dream powers, which are pretty cool, if not a little cheesy. But that's a really cool idea within the context of this film. So they have to basically come together and go into their dreams to fight off Freddy before they all get killed off. It's like almost a horror superhero film, like a superhero horror. But yeah, the effects in this one are standout. They might even rival Part 2 for me, but you get a lot of really cool effects like the little stop motion Freddy puppet. You get the big old Freddy snake early on in the film. Freddy's iconic chest of souls. That was a pretty cool piece there. Like even some of the lower grade effects are really cool in this. Like you can tell, yeah, that's fake as shit, but for 1987 effects, a lot of them still hold up pretty damn well today. So that's good on the movie for that. Um, what kind of heartless bastard would I be if I didn't mention the house in this film? The dilapidated look of the Elm Street house is fucking eerie, very atmospheric, and I think that this is the Elm Street house at its most iconic. So, yeah. It's also the probably one of the most balanced Nightmare on Elm Street films in terms of the horror and humor. Like Freddy is still terrifying, but he's also got some of those Henny Youngmanisms going on, where he's just silly enough, but he's not obnoxious, as we'll come to see if in the next couple of films. And speaking of balance, the dream scenes also are handled very well. They're still kind of grounded in what a real life dream would be like, but they're also given just a little bit of grandiosity to them. It's not too over the top with too many crazy set pieces, but just enough. If it makes any sense, the dreams are outlandishly realistic. Oh yeah, we also get the return of John motherfucking Saxon in here, and this time he's a alcoholic security guard, and it's honestly pretty fucking depressing in terms of his character. Just to see the downhill spiral he's taken since the first film. But it really is a nice treat to have him back. He becomes a pretty heavy player in the third act. And I like that we get some backstory on Freddy. So it expands the universe without overdoing it. I know sometimes in horror films and films in general, like a beloved character is given some backstory and people usually go apeshit crazy hating it. But in this one, they did it just right. And it almost raises a question of almost a nature versus nurture when you hear Freddy's backstory, being that he was the product of 100 maniacs raping a nun. So that kind of puts the question in your mind, nature versus nurture, just a little bit, but it does it without being too heavy-handed, I feel. Kristen's mom also, forgot to mention her. She's an interesting character, and she's kind of, you almost want to hate her, but you kind of sympathize for her a little bit. She's really in that kind of gray area where you don't know how to feel about her exactly because she doesn't have too much screen time. And honestly, she works better for me than Nancy's mom did in the first film. And I don't know, that's just how I feel about that, despite her small screen time. Can someone please tell me why the fuck she's smoking in that nice house of hers? I know that this was one of the later films that I saw in the series, so I don't have the same kind of nostalgia for it that a lot of people have. I was like maybe 15 when I saw this one. It was this one and the Dream Master I saw around the time the remake came out. And however, I had seen the previews for both of them hundreds of times because they were on the old Nightmare on Elm Street 2 VHS tape. And I don't know, there was something about the preview for this one that really captured my attention because it didn't really tell you anything that was going on in the film. So it just shows a little girl sitting on a bed with a model of the Nightmare on Elm Street house. It's just a nice little spinning shot, and then you see Freddy's glove just shoot out, and it just says the title of the film, coming soon to a theater near you. And the names, like with the names of two films back to back being Dream Warriors and Dream Master, that kind of captured my young imagination. And anyway, this one, another thing real quick is I gotta mention Dokken because their music comes up in this a couple times. I had actually been listening to Dokken for a couple years before I actually did see this film, and I don't know, that's just something cool that I thought was like, hey, this is that band Dokken that I like to listen to. It's like they actually wrote the song Dream Warriors and Into the Fire. Both of those songs kick heavy loads of ass. Um, is anybody else bugged by the fact that the hallways in Weston Hills are a little too narrow looking? I don't know, that just kind of really bugs the shit out of me. Those hallways look too narrow. Um, yeah, it's the climax of this film is where shit gets really cool because you got Nancy and the teenagers who are still alive go into the dream to face Freddy down, while Dr. Bill Maher and John Saxon are sent to find Freddy's earthly remains and bury them in hallowed ground. And it's really cool the way they kind of go back and forth between those two segments. So let's just get this moving a little bit onto the favorite kill. Now, this one, much like the first film, has some of the more iconic kills in the franchise. And out of the 6 kills you see in this film, there are 3 of them that always stand out to people. And of course, one of my favorite kill is going to be one of those 3 premiere kills. Would it be the hypodermic Freddy fingers? No, sir. Could it be Welcome to Primetime, Bitch? Sorry, think again. My favorite kill is actually, and this is just by a smidge, mind you, is Philip as the bloody puppet, when Freddy's got his tendons and coming out, and oh, it's just fucking absolutely horrifying, and it makes you feel all, like, you just feel very uncomfortable when you watch that for the first time, just watching him get his arms and legs slit open, and Freddy's just manipulating his tendons or arteries, whatever, just like fucking puppet strings. And the effect of Freddy's body up in the clouds before he drops him off the side of the tower is, again, it's one of those effects that are kind of the lower grade, but they're still fucking phenomenal looking. And moving on to the smutty sighting would be Joey's nurse dream. And when I saw this film, I was a hormonal teenager. So you can imagine that Joey's dream about the nurse really, really got me, like, smiling big like a motherfucker ear to ear, you know? Yeah, Joey's basically he's one of those kids who makes it through eventually, and he doesn't talk much, so when they go into the first group dream, he's like, I'm gonna leave, but he can't tell him. He's been eyeballing this nurse throughout the whole film, and in his dream, she makes an advance on him, and he's thinking, oh yeah, this is great. Yeah, oh god, she's got a fucking beautiful body, but in the dream, it turns out it's actually Freddy manipulating taking shape as the nurse, so that's kind of go like, if you know what I mean. Favorite dream sequence? I would it be cheating if I said the whole final act when Nancy, Kristen, Taryn, Will, and Kincaid have to go into Dreamland to save Joey and fight Freddy. Because again, I really like the way that it's interwoven with John Saxon and Dr. Bill Maher, who are they're getting ready to bury Freddy's remains, and it's just kind of cutting back between the two parts of the film, and it shows Freddy's strength also in this film, because there's a scene where he even jumps into the real world to possess his remains to fight off John Saxon and Bill Maher for a minute. And it's cool because, again, the lower grade effects, it does some Jason the Argonaut shit to, like, his skeleton just reforms to fight them off, and it's like, I don't know, it's really fucking cool. Kind of goofy looking today, but like if you watch that scene closely, you'll see a few little what the fuck things pop up. So yeah, the climax dream sequence, that whole last, fuck, well, how long is that, like 30 minutes or more? That whole last act is just fucking phenomenal. Spotting Bob Shea. So there is no Bob Shea. There is no Spotting Bob Shea. Sorry. For the Freddie Quipper. Now there's some good one-liners to choose from in here. This is when they're still writing good one-liners for Freddie, but they're not obnoxious, and they're all pretty well done. Like we have, what's wrong, Joey feeling tongue-tied? What a rush. I don't believe in fairy tales, kid. Obviously, welcome to primetime, bitch. And even I said, where's the fucking bourbon? Like, out of those, like, those are all, like, top tier Freddy one-liners there. And I don't know, I might get a little bit of shit for this, but where's the fucking bourbon is probably my favorite of Freddy's quips in this film. And I know I kind of snubbed the welcome to primetime, bitch kill scene. And I kind of snubbed that one-liner too, so see how people feel about that. So yeah, if it's not obvious enough, I really do find A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors to be a damn solid sequel and just an all-around good film. All the praise that this film gets is 100% justified, and I would never in a million years argue with somebody for putting this at the top of their ranking list for the Nightmare franchise. It's certainly worth the purchase, and its rewatchability is off the fucking charts, man. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, maybe leave a comment down below. Did Dr. Bill Maher ever go back for his license at the church? What do you think? As always, stay filthy.